Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Gold Silver Brief, and as a reminder, we are so back. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. Guys, silver today is trading around $80 an ounce. But just 5 years ago, it was sitting right around $20 an ounce, and just a few years before that, $14 to $16 per ounce, and almost nobody cared at the time. Back then, precious metals were considered boring, dead money, an outdated hedge in what people believed was a booming stock market. Stocks were climbing artificially, risk assets were hot, crypto was getting louder, and silver, of course, it was stuck, doing absolutely nothing. If we look at this chart and go back just a few years, TradingView, I don't know why they didn't start measuring the silver market. According to TradingView, it shows 2017, June of 2017, and we see this very tight trading channel between 14 to 16. Here we would drop down to 14 and a half, $15 for many years. The COVID bump comes in. We started to head up towards 18, 17, 18. And then there was a little bit of a crash back down to 15, and then that's where we first started to, during peak COVID hysteria, really start to see precious metals garner a little bit of attention, getting silver up to the $25-ish range and continuing in a very tight trading channel. Pretty much this whole region right here for like a 2.5 year period. Zoom in, we look, this yellow line is the 200-day moving average, and we see what has happened here over just the past few months. An astronomical, unprecedented leap in precious metals. Those low prices that we just talked about 6-7 years ago, that's exactly when and why I was buying silver. 2018, 2019, the overall mood in the markets was confidence, almost complacent, and we talked about this all the time. Volatility was low, optimism was really high. Most investors were chasing growth potential, not necessarily thinking about protection. People that followed this channel, we were thinking about protection. We were thinking about long-term wealth preservation. That's what it's about. That's what it's always been about. Silver was not trending, it was not trendy, it was not exciting. It wasn't on financial news panels, it wasn't on CNBC, it was definitely not the popular trade. And I remember talking about this stuff all the time, guys, and here's a little glimpse, just a few off the rip, some of the last videos that I posted on this channel. This was on October 9th, 2020. Silver will shock us all. Don't sleep on silver, September 15th, 2020. Why silver could become the next Tesla. Parabolic moves are coming, and this was talking about silver's use case with electric vehicles, solar, every electronic on the face of the planet Earth, basically. Here was another one, August 2020. August 18th, 2020. The stage is set for silver. $100 plus silver is coming sooner than most realize. July 29th, 2020. Silver will soon be heading to $100 plus. People called us crazy. People called us insane. Silver traded at peak at $120 just about a month ago. And yes, there has been a correction in the market. There has been a pullback. The paper silver trade, you can see right here, if you understand some basic technical analysis, silver is very overbought in terms of the paper trade. This is so disconnected from the physical metals market, it's not even funny. What I said back then, in a way, sure, it was a hype take, just at the time especially, but it wasn't just a hype take. It wasn't based on momentum. It was based on fundamental structure and truth about precious metals, specifically silver. The reason I was buying silver, and I bought tons of silver at $15 and $16 an ounce, it had nothing to do with excitement. It was the macroeconomics of it all. It was the fundamentals. We were looking constantly at global debt, Extremely, extremely loose monetary policy, artificially suppressed interest rates, a historically stretched, ridiculous gold to silver ratio. Silver was nowhere close to overpriced at the time. It was historically undervalued. And I remember comments, people used to cry when, silver would go up or down $1 or 50 cents. And what we all realized, what many of us realized, myself at the time realized, was that silver was absolutely historically undervalued. And historically, when silver gets that disconnected from fundamentals, it does not stay there forever. And it doesn't stay there for a very long time. In this case, here we are 5 and 6 years later, where I'm coming out on the other side telling you that over the last 5 years, my net worth has increased over $250,000. I've paid off almost all of my debt, and here we are. What I believed then was that the risk reward heavily favored the patient investor. Not because something dramatic was necessarily happening back then or that week, even though there was a lot going on. We understood that this was a long-term game. We understood sort of how the chessboard of the political landscape, the global trade landscape looked. It was because the setup was forming beneath the surface. The hard part back then, and this is the part that most people don't talk about or like to talk about, but buying early is really the easy part. Holding on to it while nothing is happening is hard. Silver sits at $15 an ounce for months and months and months, years on end. It seemed like, basically, when I was working hardest at this channel, you really start to question yourself. You start to question your decisions. We saw other assets like Bitcoin, really exploding and gaining popularity, and we talked about that a lot. You see the headlines about new highs in other markets. You hear people dismissing metals. They're outdated. They're just these ancient relics. You can't eat gold. It's hilarious. I remember that. I remember hearing it all the time. The thesis here did not change. It hasn't changed. My position hasn't changed from what it was 5 and 6, 7 years ago. But the noise around gold and silver have certainly changed. How about it? Boy, do gold and silver have a lot of attention here as of late. We see headlines by the day. Gold reclaiming $5,000. Ooh, analysts warn that volatility is far from over. Gold prices testing resistance just below $5,000 as U.S. inflation cools. Yeah, right. U.S. inflation's cooling. Are you guys feeling that yet? Gold and silver plunge in market-wide flash crash. That was on the 12th. Absolutely ridiculous the way that these articles and big websites like even Kitco, for example, and I don't know where they get all of their information from, but it's just so funny how the headlines play off of that day-to-day, even intraday trade sometimes. Knee-jerk emotional reactions. It's laughable. Back to the silver chart here. What changed? What changed, guys? The macro environment began catching up to what we all saw building at the time. Monetary expansion accelerated, inflation pressures increased, everybody's feeling the effects of that. Global instability rose, war, tariffs, all these things. Again, that's not what this channel is going to be about, but all these things are to be taken into account. Investors started looking at these tangible assets again. Let's not even get into the fact that Russia, gold, countries that I talked about years ago, that these nation states were purchasing precious metals for their stockpiles, are still doing that today, even tenfold now. Silver and gold did not just suddenly become valuable, it became recognized once again. Big difference. The fundamentals that were present at $15 didn't magically appear later. They were already there. The market just took time to acknowledge them. As I said at the beginning of the video, we're back. So now we're here. Again, Silver trading right around $75, $80 an ounce. You're not getting an ounce of silver for under $80 unless you're in a really good spot or have connections with local dealers. The conversation is different now. The attention is much different. The energy here is different. That's why I'm back on YouTube. Here's the real question though. Are the underlying conditions truly resolved, or are we seeing another phase of the same larger cycle? We give it that 30,000 foot view. Debt levels are higher today than they were 5 years ago. Monetary policy remains deeply influential. Inflation certainly hasn't disappeared structurally. Central banks around the world, again as I mentioned, continue accumulating hard assets like gold. I said it all the time back in the day. These cycles don't end because people get comfortable. They end when structural imbalances are corrected. And I don't see those imbalances being corrected. I didn't see it back then. And through 2 different administrations now, the way that I see our government operating, the way that I see the global landscape, those imbalances are not being corrected. They're not even being talked about. So what's the big takeaway, the big lesson here? From $15 an ounce, it's not that anybody was necessarily right. It's that the opportunity rarely feels exciting in the moment. When silver was ignored, that was the opportunity. When silver becomes obvious, much of the easy move has already happened. So the question now becomes, okay, is $75 an ounce a good place to buy? You tell me. The real edge in the markets isn't reacting to these headlines. It's recognizing conditions before they're popular. If you've been in the precious metals space like I have for years, going on a decade myself personally, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. If you're newer here, and this is appealing to you, and you kind of understand the gist of what we're getting at here, study these cycles. I used to look at this chart right here all day long. All day long I would watch silver move. And I would study these indicators, and I would study patterns that gold and silver have gone through over years. Study monetary policy, become financially literate, study historical price behavior, understand that gold and silver is not a means of getting rich quick. It's really not even a long-term investment strategy, and we could talk about reasons why that is. Precious metals are a way of preserving the wealth that you have earned, transferring your dollars into a more stable asset. And markets, of course, repeat these patterns far more often than they create something completely new. And honestly, we're seeing a new pattern in precious metals right now. This is a massive, unprecedented rip over a 200-day moving average. It's staggering, and I think that silver is going to create a new base somewhere around here, probably $45 to $50, maybe if we're lucky. And gold, on the other hand, we can see a very similar trend here. Gold actually looking stronger, continuing to just trend upward, well over the 200-day moving average, doubling in price in a year's time, essentially. Here's the beginning of 2025, and $2,500 was captured right around the end of 2024. We've doubled since then. And I think that gold is developing its new resistance levels and support base in the $45,000 to $5,000 range. So this is a new era of smart money. But the fact is, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I first started this channel, silver was $15 frickin' an ounce, man, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. We were crazy, right? Us in our little niche here, our little bubble. It was great to have our own echo chamber of people that believed and thought the same way. That's ultimately why I'm back here on YouTube, because the community in this space is just, I need you guys. To just be surrounded by people that think the same way and share the same beliefs. The conversation is very different today. But the discipline required to navigate the market, that hasn't changed at all. When I look at the big picture, the conditions forming are very, very familiar. Guys, If you've been here since the early days, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, this is just the beginning. Smash that sub button. This is the Gold and Silver Brief. I'll see you next time. Thanks.